Okay, so I didn't really have too much planned for what I want this video to be, but basically I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about, well, I guess talk about negative thinking. Um, yeah, it's something that I've definitely wrestled with for a long time now, and um, so yeah, for me, yeah, negative. I've always growing up, especially throughout middle school, I always had a lot of like intrusive thoughts, and I mean it just had to mainly just do with like my obsession, my I guess my obsession over like finding comfort in whenever I'm like stressed out a lot. Um, so like growing up, I always had like a lot of like intrusive thoughts. It's kind of like like obsessive compulsive like this like I'm kind of like thinking about like let's just say like to share a little bit more about myself. Like I kind of struggled with lust when I was like younger, and I always kind of thought about like a lot of like sexual like images growing up, especially throughout middle school, which is when I was like kind of like introduced to like what sex meant, or like what I guess what porn meant as well. So um, and I would kind of envision a lot of like a lot of things that weren't necessarily good, and I would just kind of just be okay with that. And so that was just I mean that, obviously that's just one example, but like as I got older and I got like more mature, things just kind of got a lot more challenging, because I'm kind of becoming an adult, and learning how to how to cancel out those thoughts. I mean they still come and go, but for the majority of my life, it's my adulthood, it's been kind of like it's always been like a constant wrestle with that, because especially as someone who kind of identifies as a Christian, like I don't want it to be something that takes control over my life, and even takes control over like like my goals and my future, and even my relationships with people, because that's the one thing that I kind of fear the most, is that my relationships with others that I built over the years you know will be ruined, uh, and so that's why I don't want to kind of lose that 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 sort of kinship that I share with those around me. So so that's that's why for me, like for myself, like I kind of resort to like a lot of like uh self-deprecating thoughts, like like what's wrong with me, or what's like what's or like why can't I just be normal, or why can't I just have like I mean, well, I guess not normal, but like sort of like why can't I just be like everyone else, and why can't where can I find that sort of like that that sort of space where I could just be calm, with who I am, and and just kind of be okay with that, because it's hard. It's definitely challenging to be, someone, to be yourself, because honestly, it's honestly to like to be myself would mean to kind of like be somebody that I'm not, or just kind of like I don't know, like just kind of like share pretty much everything about myself, being honest with with other people, and just kind of getting a certain you know I don't know, a certain reaction, I don't know, but but negative thinking is definitely something that I've been learning how to get, not get over, but to not really let it affect me as much, because it's I can think of like like a million things of what's wrong with me, instead, and and it's like because the only thing I can find value in myself is through other people, because obviously you can't look at yourself in the mirror and just identify what you look like, right? You basically sort of get that from other people, just by how you look, or what you say, and they remember what you say. They remember what you did, or how you looked during a certain day better than you, because uh, because you were your own self, you were your own worst critic, and yet when when you receive that certain like good news from someone else, it's like it kind of makes you like it either makes you feel okay, or like that's not really true. You don't really believe in that. Like what they say isn't really the true you. Only you know yourself better than anyone else. And so that's kind of like with me. Um, I find man, my leg is itchy. Um, I just kind of find a hard time just like being with myself, and being like I mean, there are times where I do feel good and then about myself, and then it kind of just ends. I mean, I kind of wanted to just stay, but it doesn't always stay, because obviously you can't always be happy all the time. So I can get a little bit giddy about it, about feeling good about myself, because I want to have more of that, and just kind of like let the time pass. But that's why for me, like, negative thinking is like it's always going to be there, like, because there's going to be good times, but there's also going to be bad times too. And sometimes for a lot of us, bad times can kind of come up a lot more, because of just life circumstances, and it's very easy to kind of resort back to your shell a lot. And so and I think that's kind of like like been a norm for people who struggle with themselves. um, and so I've always definitely had a hard time with like just with life circumstances, because I never really, I guess when I guess as a kid, I was kind of like all about me, and I was all about like like wanting to be you know like just kind of wanting to be make it all about me, like being number one. And then as I got older, I realized like it's kind of a lot of people are a lot more competitive these days, and so it's like they kind of want to win more than you. And so I kind of like compare myself to other people, and I see my and then that's where I see my value, where it's like they have something that I don't have. They have something that's worth more than me, and that's where a lot of like negative thoughts can easily creep in, because because comparing yourself to someone else is like is like like a weight, like it's kind of like when you're weighing something, and you're wearing something that's like strong and solid, and with a good base, good foundation, versus someone who's like who's oddly shaped and not and doesn't weigh as much. It's like a feather. It's like kind of like like this side weighs more than this. And so that's kind of like how I see myself, and see my my value, uh, just throughout my life. I don't know, like, I mean, comparing yourself is like a good thing at times, because it's like, that's how I see it, because it's like you can use that to kind of be, someone who's very competitive and try to do better, because I think competition is like, that's kind of like one of the key, traits that, key things that a lot of people use is to help better themselves, because when they see someone else working harder than them, it makes them want to work hard. And that's kind of like me, basically, because I kind of work hard. I want to work harder than than that person. And sometimes, when I don't work as hard, it's it does kind of disappoint you a lot. So I that's why I kind of reformed, like, back to my shell, and just kind of forget that I ever, I ever actually, valued myself. Um, because it's like, I kind of like, it's it's a whole story to it, but for the most part, it's very easy to think about, like, like the bad things of something versus the good things. Like, it's like, yeah, because for me, it's always about, like, how you see yourself in life, like how you want to see yourself in life. Because for me, I want to, I try to, to find purpose in life, and which I think can kind of help battle negative thinking. Like, if you know what you're worth, and you know what you want to do in your life, like if you have like a reasonable goal, then I feel like you can fight those negative thoughts even better. Um, so I mean, I want to be like, I give myself, something to achieve. I give myself something that I want to pursue in. And it might not always work out. I know, like, life can kind of get in the way of that, but it's all about, never giving up, which is what I heard. I've heard before. It's like, I know it's like cliche thing, but it's like, it's very, it's even in, like, even in the darkest, like, even if you just do it, for the sake of, of just doing something, of just like getting a just one win for today, just like winning something, just getting that one small little victory, then it's worth it. And because it's like you're making progress, you're making small bouts of progress. Um, and so that's why, so yeah, that's why I think, setting yourself up for, putting yourself in a situation where you kind of set high expectations for yourself can also lead to, like, disappointment. um, and that's what kind of, brings on, those negative thoughts. Um, but as for, right now, I'm trying to, like, learn how to, learn to love myself. um, like, even just trying, like, by just taking, like, small steps as to not saying, bad things about yourself, because I do believe, words do have power. And if you, let yourself, if you put yourself, uh, put yourself in, if you put yourself down by saying a lot of mean things to yourself, then I think it does take a toll on you. That's why I'm trying to learn how to. So that's why I'm trying to learn how to not say bad things about myself, but trying to, to try and, I mean, I should be able to say something encouraging, like, like, I can do this, or I got this, or, just like, just something, just that can be self-encouraging to oneself. And because words do have, the power to kill and destroy, but it also has the power to create and give life. So, um, I mean, this is just from, like, a Christian standpoint, obviously, but I think it does kind of stand out to, like, in as a whole in general. So, that's why, so yeah, so that's why, negative thinking, I feel like for some people, like, it does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of, like, working on yourself one, like, daily, and, refreshing your mind. Or maybe saying, like, taking a break from this, or it could be, just like, getting, coming out of your comfort zone, and just, trying to see failure as a part of, like, learning and growing, and that's something I'm still kind of like doing at this point, and I'm taking small steps to kind of get to where I need to be in life. Um, but but yeah, it's just a matter of, like, it's kind of like, just going to the gym, like, even the first step is, like, just showing up. It's and so like, because when you show up, it's like, that there's work to be done. That you have to, you're in the zone. You have to, get up and do work, and do something, and just kind of go with the flow. So uh, that's kind of like how it is with, like, with when going up against, negative thinking, is you have to learn to learn to say things about yourself that you might not believe at first, but just hearing that is, it could it's definitely, encouraging. It's definitely something I truly believe can help, a person, even when it's hard for them to believe it. Um, and it's all a part about, just showing yourself grace, because you are not I mean, you are not, your thoughts. It's more like, it's not the whole, like, I think therefore I am. It's, you know it's that's kind of true, but like, it's how you perceive, those thoughts that matter. It's how you see those, what you think about yourself, is what really matters. Um and so that's what I believe in, is like, if you think you're this, then that's who you're going to become. um and you So that's pretty much, I mean, obviously I didn't have, anything, like, ready or prepared for this video. I just kind of came back home, uh, and this is pretty much in the middle of the night. So um but for me, it's definitely some small steps, that I need to take, that I need to learn to work on. And um so and I'm pretty sure, everyone has kind of, like, dealt with that. Even people who have, people who kind of struggle, like perfectionists, for example. Like, I would consider myself a perfectionist, um and just because I place too much expectations on myself. um and when I don't meet those expectations, that's when those thoughts can kind of come in. Like, if I don't pass a test, or if I don't do my task on time, or I don't do exactly the way I wanted it should be done, or I miss one little thing, then it's like, you ruin the whole cake pretty much. And I hate, and that's what kind of, like, pisses me off. It kind of, like, throws me, you know it makes me go nuts. Um and so that's why I'm still trying to learn how to kind of, rewire my brain into, like, into into just, like, thinking, like, this is, thinking that this is just a learning curve. And so, sorry. And just trying to, like, trying to do better, in my journey. Obviously, there's gonna be some bumps on the road, and you're definitely gonna, definitely gonna see some setbacks. Um but it's all about learning and growing, and, like, just finding a strategy that can help you kind of battle those thoughts when they come, because it's definitely, takes a lot. Definitely takes a lot of hard work. And But perfectionists definitely, they struggle with it a lot. They struggle with being, you know you know they struggle giving themselves grace. They struggle giving themselves a break. um, uh, just living instead of just like working. I think that's kind of like the mind of a perfectionist. um, so instead of just like being just being in the moment, they kind of tend to be like thinking ahead, and like they think of the result rather than just the journey. Like there are definitely perfectionists that struggle with that, and so that's why negative thoughts, they kind of come in. So um, yeah.